couldn't even make it to 60. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Gold Guy YouTube channel, and welcome back to my 1974 Honda MT250 Elsinore restoration. Hiccups. That'll do it. I'm gonna find out how fast this bike can get from 0 to 60 miles an hour. Now, in the last video, I got this bike running pretty good. It started out running backwards. That was crazy. If you haven't seen that, you gotta watch it. The link up here or in the description. And also follow me on TikTok, where I post short videos on there. In order to make sure this thing is running tip-top shape, I'm going to put a bigger main jet in the carburetor, because I do have a free-flowing uni air filter on this thing, so it's going to need a little bit more fuel pumping in to compensate for the extra air. First fuel line, then throttle cable, and air filter, and there's the carburetor. This is the stock main jet. It is a 115 size. Well, let's try this 120. I'm just gonna do it by hand, because if I use a drill, it will definitely wobble and make that hole way too big. Ream this out. That's perfect. That's a perfect 120. Nice and clean. Back in you go. Running great. It's not smoking quite as much as before. And hopefully it runs better with that bigger main jet. It's not sounding that good, actually. It's running pretty good. I think it just needs to warm up a little bit. Woo! 70! Holy crap! Man, 70 on a vintage bike is way different than 70 on a brand new bike. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. So I got the bike home and I realized I have never checked the needle position on this bike. So, oh, it's not in the middle. That's surprising. Let's get it in the middle position. Because the way it's set at now, it's making the needle go down more, which is letting less gas into the carb or into the engine, which is not what I want, especially with that new air filter. So we've got the carb back off the bike, and I want to go a little bit bigger on the main jet. I did 120. It should really be, I think, 125. Normally when you do a bigger air filter, you raise the main jet 2 sizes. So I've raised it 1 size. I'd do a second size up. 125, there you are. Alright, that's a solid 125 with no wiggle. And it's clear. Back in you go. Figure this is a good time to check the float height also. So what I'm gonna do is lightly seat the float on the plunger, not to where it starts springing, but just to where it starts touching the needle. So right there. And it should be 20 millimeters, which is 0.787 inches, which is actually right there on a tape measure. And you measure from the carburetor body to the highest point on the float. It's actually about 7/8 of an inch. I'm gonna bend the little tab up a little bit. All right, now let's check it. Yeah, now it is totally perfect. It's like right at that line after 3/4. The line on the float is parallel to the line on the carburetor. Before it was like that. So it seemed like someone messed with that a little bit. Now it is at the stock height. Now there's just one more thing I want to check. That is the air jet, which is this screw right here. It should be set at 1.5 turns out. So we screw it all the way in. That was definitely more than 1.5 turns. And then half, 1.5. There we go. It's 1.5 turns out. So now everything is at stock settings except for the main jet. Main jet is a 125 now instead of 115. Let's rock and roll, and we will see how the bike likes that. Now that I've done about everything I can do to the carburetor, I've got to check the ignition timing and properly set it, and hopefully that will give me better top end power. Now that I have the fire mark on the magneto lined up with the mark on the crankcase, I need to open the point just a tiny bit, because that's when it has to start opening. Alright, it's the next day, and I'm going to test out the new carburetor setting. The bike is idling really well. It seems to be running a lot better. So, let's see how it does on the 0 to 60. Well guys, no more 0 to 60 runs for a little bit. I blew the bike up. No, just kidding. I did not blow the bike up, but it definitely was a possibility. I had a major issue going on with this bike, and I'm glad I can't ride it anymore, because if I could, I probably would have blown it up trying to do more 0 to 60 runs. So I got back from that ride and I found out that the spark plug wire was melted. And that means that this engine was getting way too hot. That should never happen. It was getting way too hot because it was just running super lean. And it was running super lean because the intake boot, the rubber boot that connects the carburetor to the engine, has a leak. Right at the oil feed line, it is leaking right there. So uncarbureted air was getting into the engine, making the mixture way too lean. That's also probably why it was bogging down in the high end and just not running that well overall. So now that I know all these things, it's time to get a new coil and a new carburetor boot. Once I do those things, we'll take this bike out on some more runs and it'll be running in tip-top shape, and we'll be able to actually find out how fast it can go. A few days later, and I've got my new parts, new intake manifold and the new coil on here, so that we can get this bike running good again. Alright, now everything's done. We should be able to get this bike running, take it on a test ride. Let's give it a shot. Bike is cold, choke's on, gas is on. There we go. Please start. It's been giving me a lot of trouble lately, so if it starts, I'll be real happy. Almost. Maybe I don't need the choke. Well, it's running. Definitely quite a bit of white smoke there. It always does that on startup and then it goes away. It's feeling really boggy right now. Really boggy. But maybe it'll clear up as it warms up. We will see. Alright, well, it's running okay. Definitely not running like great. I thought that new intake manifold would really help things along, but I don't know. It's running pretty decent, so I guess let's go for another 0 to 60 run. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Couldn't even make it to 60. Yeah, this bike's got issues, guys. It's smoking a lot now again. It wasn't smoking like the whole ride, and now it's just smoking like crazy. And it just bogs out at high RPM, so yeah, I would say the crank seals must be blown. I mean, that's white smoke. I wish it wasn't true, but it's just not running right, and it's definitely burning oil. It shouldn't be smoking like that. So I guess the next video on this thing will be an engine rebuild. I really didn't want this video to end this way. I mean, it runs idle so good. I wanted to get some good 0 to 60 runs, but it's just barely even makes it to 60 miles an hour, so I really need your guys' support right now. Please hit that subscribe button. Check out my Patreon also. I could really use some donations there to help me rebuild this engine. And if you don't do Patreon, you can definitely check out PayPal as well. Anything helps. I would really appreciate it. And comment down below if you've got any ideas for this thing. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.